I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, January the 4th, brought to you in part by Stay Tough Fencing. Stay Tough manufactures one of the broadest lines of high tensile and low carbon fences in the market, along with a full line of tools and accessories for installation and repair. Stay strong, stay tight, and stay tough. The ABCs of LRPs. And the LRPs the last couple of years have probably been the biggest thing that has changed within the industry. And you know, they've been around for a long time and people keep saying that, but nobody was using them. So now that they've started using them, that's changed everything. But it's a USDA program, and first of all, you have to remember that the only reason that the USDA exists is to keep food cheap. Think about it. That's the only reason. We feel like we have a good government if we can afford to feed ourselves. I don't know if we were supposed to feed 8 million illegal immigrants to boot, but still, we're keeping food cheap with the USDA programs. So, row crop farmers have had tons of subsidy programs over the last many years. It's to help keep the food cheap. It's to help keep them in business. And your cattle people have kind of felt like they were left out in the cold because they're not getting as much help. But the livestock risk protection, the LRP program, has existed for almost 20 years. Now they've upped the subsidies of late, ranging from 35 to 55% of the premium. 35 if they take on the biggest part of the risk. If you accept part of the risk, it can get to as much as 55%, but most everybody, if they're going to do it, they want to lay off as much risk as they can. But in the last 20 years, but as recently as 2017, there were less than 100,000 head of cattle enrolled in it. That hasn't been that long ago, guys. In 2023, there was more than 5 million cattle enrolled in it. So that's why it's changed so much. That's why it's starting to make such a big effect. So basically, you know, how do the LRPs work? I'm going to talk about how they work for backgrounding cattle or grazing cattle, basically stocker type cattle, turning them into feeders. The LRPs actually don't work that well if you're using them for cattle on feed in the feedlot, and that's why they have some of the other programs that a lot of your sellers of risk management tools have decided to use and found different ways to use them to help you with cattle that are actually on feed or in the feedlot. But as far as a feeder cattle, LRP. The target prices that are well advertised that you can look out there and take, they're based off of the out front feeder cattle futures. And so they go out there and you look and you can see some pretty impressive prices, and basically you select that price and you can lock in selling your cattle for that price. It's pretty much exactly like buying a put. But it's not as scary for people that aren't comfortable with trading in the CME on the board there. But you're basically buying a put. You're doing it through usually some type of an ag insurance agent, and I advertise for a bunch of them, a bunch of different ones. And that's one reason I'm telling you guys this. You say, well, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You think they're good, and then you say they're bad. No, I just said they were partly responsible for the pressure that was on the board. And now I'm wanting to tell you about why they are something that's important that you need to use, because you know you can select that target price out there, and if you enroll into an LRP at that, you're basically locking in. That's what you're going to get for your cattle. But the LRPs are better than a put because your target price is based on your CME feeder cattle futures, which out front are usually at a pretty nice premium. And you hear me talk about it all the time, where as they get closer to you, they just kind of evaporate, and we can't really seize on them. But way out front, they're pretty fancy, pretty handsome, and they look pretty good. Then whenever you cash those in, whenever it comes to fruit, and you select whenever you're going to sell the cattle, well, when you select you're going to sell the cattle, then when you cash them in, that's based on your CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index, which is a cash price, which is reality. Which reality, is a lot more real. It's more reasonable. It's not such a big price out there. So you're basically getting paid on the difference between that big price out front and then reality. And because of that, you're basically, you're in the money already, because those out front futures are usually quite a bit higher than whenever you get to reality. They're lower, and so you're already ahead of the game. Also, it doesn't matter what kind of cattle you have. That they don't care what kind of cattle you run. Now, they do have to have proof now that you actually own some cattle, but it doesn't matter what kind of cattle you have. So if, it doesn't matter what kind of cattle you're handling, you're going to get paid the same as long as you own some cattle. And so that's the way that deal works. Now, we do have some outfits that are abusing the system. That is why we're seeing that work on the pressure on the board so much, and may have been partly responsible to the big volatility that happened late in the year last year, is because we have people and outfits, big outfits too, that are abusing the system. Some of them are subsidy harvesting, and I don't think that they've paid enough attention to that. They haven't tried to pursue people that have been doing that, but they'll basically take out an LRP with the 35% of the premium being paid, and then they'll go on the board and sell a put for about the same price. And most of the time, your LRPs cost between $8 to $12 a hundred. And so, and that's similar to what it's going to cost you to put a put on. Well, so you can you buy an LRP or enroll in the LRP program. Let's say it costs you $10. You get 35% of that subsidized to you from the government, and then they go and sell a put on the board, and then they're getting to keep, the 35% of that. If you do enough of it, it gets to be pretty lucrative. And there's people that are abusing that, and it's called subsidy harvesting, and it should be against the law, and they ought to be looking into it, and they shouldn't be allowing them to do that. But typically with some type of a government program, you're going to have people that are abusing it all the time, and they don't really know how to look into it and to straighten it out. We also have really big outfits that are enrolling in the LRP because they're kind of a no-brainer, and then they're going ahead and they're just looking at that as a bonus, and then they're going ahead and hedging the cattle like they always did. And then you have your insurance companies that are laying off that risk of signing up the LRP, and they're hedging too, because nobody said that the insurance company had to accept all that risk. They have different ways of risk management also. Well, they're laying off that risk, so it's a double whammy on our board, especially on the feeder cattle futures, which are a very shallow contract. They can't handle it all. And so that's why I was saying, and it's, some people are still doubting it, but of course, all that extra pressure on your feeder cattle futures, they just can't withstand it, because we have to look at people outside the industry to be on the long side, and there's not enough of them, especially whenever we have interest rates being higher now. You can take out a CD at about any bank for 5%. So the money managers are not, looking at that risky type things like your feeder cattle futures as much as they may have been whenever, you know, a CD would bring back less than 1%, and you were looking at places to gain some interest on money. So that's kind of the way it goes with that. Now, I did talk to a producer on Wednesday there, and he was just making me aware of it. He said, man, I got screwed because I picked the holiday to cash in, or saying that I was selling my cattle. He said I planned on selling my cattle you know, late in the year, and so I did it there at the end of the year. Well, with your CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index, which I've been talking about in our RTI, or real-time index that we do here, and I talk about on this program all the time, they were extremely light in receipts, because it runs off your sale barn receipts primarily. CME does use some direct trade, but there wasn't any direct trade either, so it got so short. And then whenever he traded his in, all of a sudden the CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index was 12 bucks higher. Ouch. That, you know, and you think, higher, that's better. No, he wanted a bigger difference because his cattle didn't sell that well. And so he was wanting the bigger difference. Well, whenever all of a sudden one day he come in and the CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index was 12 bucks higher on extremely light receipts, that was a hell of a hickey that he had to accept. So be thinking about that. And he said, next year I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say, you know, right during the holiday season. He said he had some on a previous set of cattle that he took out that cashed in on Thanksgiving, and the same thing happened to him because they had a lot of sales were closed, and then all of a sudden a big change to your index. So you guys might want to be thinking about that. But that's kind of how your LRPs work. I hope that explains some things to a lot of you guys. I still think the LRP is a fantastic program. If your background in cattle, you're turning cattle out, I think it's a no-brainer that you ought to do it, especially when we're looking at these out front futures that got these big prices on them. It will help you sleep at night. You know, if the market falls out of bed, you know you're going to get paid somewhere pretty close to what you placed your target price at. And they are expensive, but the government does come in and pick up about a third of that, or a little better than a third of that, with a subsidy. So, and don't feel guilty about taking money from the government. If you don't take it, somebody else is going to take it, and it's probably somebody that's not even working. So, you know, it's a program that's out there. You should get into it. But there are things about it that aren't perfect, and I think it's some things that they could go in there and look at and keep people from abusing it so much. But you know, they also have big outfits, and I can't prove this, but I know it's happening, and I think you guys that know about this program know it's happening. You have these big outfits that background a lot of cattle. They're signing up at least as many cattle as they have, and probably a lot more cattle than they have. And then if they retain ownership and send them to the feedlot, then they don't have to come up with any invoices where they sold the cattle, because they're retaining ownership. They basically come up with their own paperwork. Well, you can come up with as much cattle as you want to on your own paperwork, and I'm pretty damn sure that there's several outfits that are abusing the system like that, and it just causes more and more pressure that you can't offset. Let's talk about your board for Wednesday. February live cattle down 7 cents at 171.85. April up a quarter at 174.75. Your back months were mixed, down a quarter to up 70, but basically a nothing day. Your live cattle pits. Feeder cattle for January up 65 cents at 226.07. March up 57 at 227.02. Back months on feeder cattle were also mixed, down 57 to up 40 cents. Your grains, March corn up 1.5 cents a bushel at 465.25. January beans down 4.5 cents a bushel at 1269.5. It's getting down there. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for March down 7.5 cents at 621.5 at the end of regular trading. Fat cattle trading, we had more trading in the northern plains and the Midwest at the 175 that we talked about that happened on Tuesday. And I mentioned on Tuesday it was one deal, and I'd heard through the grapevine that it was only on some confinement cattle. Not so on Wednesday. It was out there. And if you had good cattle, you could get 175, even if they had some mud on them. So 175 is the market in the Northern Plains and the Midwest. We had several feedlots that wanted more than that. So it'll be interesting to see if they are able to get that here on Friday. But Iowa sold 2,500 head. They've sold about 5,000 for the week. Live prices on Wednesday were 175 live, 275 dressed. That's $2 to $3 higher live and fully $2 higher dressed. Nebraska 3,300 on Wednesday, just 3,800 for the week. Same market, 175 live, 275 dressed. Kansas and Texas have not sold a hoof yet. The last market they had last week was 172, a few 173 in Kansas. So they'd like to have the 175 also. And they are short of cattle, market-ready cattle, the better ones. I'm not sure, if they'll be able to get that in a negotiated manner, maybe on the Fed Cattle Exchange. We'll see what happens. But Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota had a fat cattle auction on Wednesday. Had about 1,200 slaughter cattle, mostly fat steers and heifers. The conventional fat steers and heifers sold steady to $2 higher, from 171 to 176. They had some heavyweight steers. Of course, they'd be high in quality. 1,600 to 1,700 pounds bring 170 and a half to 177. So they're paying premium for those big cattle because they're better in quality there. But the program cattle, drug-free or non-implanted cattle, not much of a premium for them, 172 to 177 on those. But good fat cattle auction there at Sioux Falls Regional, Worthing, South Dakota, and that is a DVAuction broadcaster right there. And they have sales several days out of the week, and you can view and bid all of them on DVAuction. Box beef cutout values were lower a bunch again on choice. This choice rib, your ribeye rolls, prime rib rolls that everybody had during Christmas and New Year's and during the holiday parties and things, they have crashed. So your choice cutouts are dropping big time, down $6.31 on Wednesday afternoon at $278.03. Select's not down so much, down a penny on Wednesday at $258.85. Your slaughter is catching back up a little bit. Was running behind, but 254,000 for a holiday week this week. It's quite a bit more than the Christmas week, but just 4,000 less than the same week a year ago, which is a big rebound. So we may be catching up on that. And if they end up having a Saturday slaughter that amounts to something, we can have quite a bit bigger of a harvest there. Talk about what else is going on. This spring, when you go to buy your bulls at these production sales, you might want to consider Limousine and Lim Flex bulls. They're concentrating on feed efficiency, improved marbling, superior yield grade, and calving ease. Let Limousine and Lim Flex take you full circle. For more information, go to NALF.org. Talk about our feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DVAuction. Late in the day on Wednesday, sitting at 226.68. That was up 237. We had some big-time premium sales. That is through all of your business on Wednesday, and we had some really, really impressive sales. I'm going to talk to you about one that's about as high as cattle ever were. But you see me, cash feeder cattle index, the latest available was 225.05. I want to tell you about Callaway Livestock Center, Kingdom City, Missouri. It's got their special cow sale tonight at 6 o'clock p.m. Here tonight, Thursday, January the 4th. Got over 1,000 head. They're going to have at least 400 big fancy bred heifers. I'll be mostly all black on the consignments, but I mean big enough to do it, carry on, be a big nice cows for a long, long time. Have at least 400 big fancy bred cows. Got several big dispersals there that have a lot of young and middle-aged cows, and a couple of hundred pairs there too. So, and it's on DVAuction.com if you can't get to Kingdom City, Missouri. But check that out, DVAuction.com. Callaway Livestock Center special cow sale tonight. Talk about your big sales on Wednesday, and not all your sales are back. OKC West and El Reno, we stay very close in touch with them. They did not have a sale this week. They're still on their holiday schedule, so they won't start their sales till Monday with a big cow and bull sale. But Dodge City Winter Livestock had a sale, 3,800 head, and they called it their stock show specials. You get over there kind of close to the Denver area, and a lot of sales have stock show specials. And even though the woke community of Denver has kind of screwed up your National Western Stock Show, they still have the rodeo, they still have a lot of the shows, but the Cattle Congress and a lot of your purebred shows have relocated to Oklahoma City because they would not let them have it in Denver during COVID, and so they went to Oklahoma City where you could do things, and then people went to Oklahoma City and they found out that it doesn't smell like pot everywhere. The hotel rooms are a lot nicer and they don't smell like a marijuana ashtray. You can turn a trailer around, and when you go into the restaurants with cow shit on your boots, they still are glad to have you there. So it's kind of split now with the National Western. Of course, it's still in Denver, but a lot of the stock shows, including the Bell Ringer on Superior, is going to be held in Oklahoma City here this week. But at Dodge City, at 3,800 head for their stock show special. Steers are $5 to $14 higher than the last sale they had before the holidays. Heifers are $5 to $10 higher, including this one stick-out sale. 102 steers weighed 781 at 244.50. Very impressive. An impressive market that I wanted to show you is Coffeeville Stockyards, the Northtown barn in Kansas. Tylen Layton's doing a good job with that barn. Had a big sale, about 4,000 head altogether. Wanted to show you the market here. This is the market in that area, and in that area they do have some commodity type cattle. They got really good cattle there too, but they've got some commodity cattle, so take that into consideration when you're looking at these weighted average prices. But you look at the automated market report through Cattle Market Central, you see 338 head of 6-weight steers, and there's a lot of feeder cattle in there weighing 672 at 243.45. Not so many calves. These will be a lot of yearlings, guys. 687 head of 7-weight steers, average 772 at 223.79. 810 head of 8-weight steers, Coffeeville, Kansas, averaged 850 at 213.67. 869 head of 9-weight yearling steers, Coffeeville, Kansas, averaged 935 at 210.75. Before Christmas, they probably wouldn't have averaged $2. Now look at the heifers. 201 head of 6-weight heifers, averaged 644 at 223 even. 295 head of 7-weight heifers, averaged 208.83 at Coffeeville Stockyards, Northtown barn there in Kansas, and they had a really impressive sale. Now I'm going to tell you about a premium sale. We just talked about a sale that had a lot of yearling type feeder cattle. Now I'm going to talk to you about a market in the Sandhills of Nebraska that has the fanciest calves that you can find anywhere in the world, and now the producers have had time to mostly wean all these calves. So now you got fancy, long time weaned calves out of the Sandhills of Nebraska, and my goodness, it's like all that pressure we saw late in the year last year had never happened. But Bassett Livestock Auction, Bassett, Nebraska, also DVAuction broadcaster now, 4,200 head. It is our National BeefWire stickout sale of the day. They didn't have any recent comparison on it, but look at these weighted average prices. It's unbelievable. 428 head of 4-weight steer calves, be fancy, average 455 with a weighted average price of 337.37. My goodness. 845 head of the 5-weight steers in Bassett, Nebraska, averaged $560 at $300.50 on the average. And the average weight was 560, people. 1,050 almost 6-weight steers in Bassett averaged 645 at a weighted average price of $278.75. My goodness. 407 head of 7-weight steer calves. These would be steer calves, but they'd be weaned. Average 728 at $259.29. Now look at the heifers, the two best tested weights. 595 head of 5-weight heifer calves, average 550, weighted average price $277.66. That would be a stick out deal anywhere else. 567 head of 6-weight heifers, average 628 at $258.93. More than the 6-weight steers would average at a lot of sales. But I mean, Bassett is a premium type sale. Now I've got some stick out sales all around the country. How about Stockman's Livestock Market in Yankton, South Dakota, their feeder cattle sale? Check this out. 88 head of 900-pound steers bring $229 in Yankton, South Dakota. My goodness. How about Creston Livestock Auction in Creston, Iowa, America right there. 77 steers weighed 717 and bring $254. Wow. How about the Schoolies at Bloomfield Livestock Market in Bloomfield, Iowa? They sold the River Valley steers. 60 head of them weighed 685 at $264.25. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, of course, come out of Bassett, Nebraska. I could have called the big long string that weighed 525 and bring 323.50, the top quote, but I selected 179 steers, weighed 606 and bring 302.50. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.